All right, here we have, I'm really hoarse today. Hoarse. I woke up this morning and I am hoarse. What can you do? All right, here we have the sad story of Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu are the two sons of Aaron. Please excuse my hoarseness. Hopefully tomorrow it'll be all healed up. So here we have the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. And now Aaron had four sons. It was Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, and Itamar. And we're going to learn that Nadav and Avihu were incomparably holier than their other two brothers. And they couldn't hold themselves back. It was the first day that the tabernacle was operational. And they rushed in and made us, offered up incense. It seems they didn't go into the Holy of Holies. They went into the holy, where the small altar is. And they got punished. God killed them in this very strange way. And Moses praised them. So let's see what this means. All right, we just finished yesterday, which, by the way, yesterday I made a short class because there was really a long class, but I forgot. I don't know how I did it, but I forgot to record it. So I did it over again, like in double time. So therefore, the class, which usually is a half an hour long, and it was a half an hour long, yesterday I did it over again, and it was only 15 minutes. So here we go. This, by the way, reminds you that you have to thank God that you have a voice. Because yesterday I had one, and all of a sudden today, it's, what do they say, half the man I used to be. What are you going to do? That's so let's make the best of what we got. So yesterday we learned that after they made all the proper sacrifices and all the proper preparations for the 7 days, now Moses and Aaron, they make sacrifices in order to, the 7 days are finished, and now they start to work. Now they go to work. But first of all, Moses has to bring some sacrifices. Moses and Aaron bring sacrifices in order to inaugurate Aaron. And they do that, and the first time in the history of mankind, there comes down fire on the altar. There came down fire in front of God. It devoured up the offerings that were on the altar, namely the olah, the chatas, olah, and the chalavim, and he goes, everyone saw fire came down. They knew that God was with Aaron. Everyone saw, they praised God, and they fell on their faces. Everyone was happy. Okay, now, by the way, this first day, if we remember, it said that it took 10 crowns. This was the day that the different tribes, one of the leaders each day, brought what was called his inauguration offerings, 12 days. Chanukah Mizbeach. Today was supposed to bring Nachshon ben Aminadav, the tribe of Yehuda. But before he could go in and bring any of his offerings, what happened? Bnei Aaron, the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, each one took his fire pan. They put on it fire. They put on the fire incense, and they sacrificed it in front of God, a strange fire that God did not command them. Let's just do the next three. sentences and then we'll go back and explain them. But Teitze Eish, there came out fire in front of God, and it ate them up, and they died before God. We're just going to do one more sentence. And Moses said to Aaron, now Aaron feels pretty bad because these were his true prized sons, holy of holy people. And that's it, he lost them. It was supposed to be a really happy day, but it wrecked the whole thing. This was like the wedding day that God and the Jewish people were uniting, right? The Holy Temple was like the wedding canopy, and Moses was the matchmaker, and God was the groom, and the Jewish people are the bride. And all of a sudden, they rushed in. What a terrible present. And Moses said, it wasn't such a terrible, Aaron, you can be comforted. You lost your two boys, true. But there's one thing you can be comforted with. This is what God's told me. With the ones who are close to me, I will be sanctified. And in front of all the people, I will be honored. In other words, what they did was it was not a right thing. We saw that God punished them, but their intentions were amazing. They sacrificed their lives to come close to God. And Vayidom Aaron was quiet. Okay, let's see how far we can get with this. There's a lot of commentary. First of all, let's do the Baal HaTurim. Aaron and Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, each one took fire. Each one took a fire pan, and they put on it fire, and they put on it incense, and they brought it in front of God, a strange fire that God did not command them. Why does it say a strange fire? Why doesn't it say strange incense? We'll see the Ramban will talk about this if we get to it. It says that God did not command them, says the Baal HaTurim. We don't want to say that God did not command them to bring strange fire. Of course, he didn't command them to bring. And also, we can't say that God said, don't bring that fire. What does it mean? This was a commandment, Tzivoy shel lo. It was just in the general category of don't do it. What does it mean, don't do it? It was an obvious thing. Bring only what you're commanded to do. Right? Do what you're commanded to do. Right? I didn't command you not to bring this fire. I didn't command you, yes, to bring this fire. It's just in the general category of don't do it. Like it says, there's another pasuk that said, don't worship the stars and the moon and the sky. Right? What do you mean, don't worship them? Because I didn't command you to do it. Right? These are not. So in other words, they did something that was totally optional. They did it on their own, and it was in the general category of you don't do what you want to in the Holy Temple. Let's see what the Or HaChiam has to say. This wants to let you know what was their mistake. One mistake is because they were Kohanim, and therefore Kohanim have a desire for godliness. And that's what it wants to say, that they were the sons of Aaron, right? That the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. We know that Nadav and Avihu were the sons of Aaron. Why does it tell that they were? Because they were Kohanim, and Kohanim want to be close. They want to be close to God. That's their job. They just overdid it. Number two, because they were great, Nadav and Avihu, they were equal like Moshe and Aaron. Like the rabbis say, that Nadav and Avihu were equal to Moses and Aaron. Like it says in the book of the Zohar, that they were such a high level because of their deeds. And that's what it says, Nadav and Avihu. Both of them are together. There's another place where it says Nadav means generosity. Avihu means like they were representatives of their father, of Aaron, but also of God. This level that they had was not in the other two sons of Aaron, Eleazar and Itamar. That even though that they were also the sons of Aaron, but they didn't have the same level as they did as Aaron, as Nadav and Avihu did. And also we find what the rabbis say, that says that Moses got mad at Eleazar and Itamar, the sons that remained. We're going to see that later on. Look over there. It says that they came in together because of their great merit. And they didn't want to take the fire from the altar. They didn't want to take fire from the altar. They said, maybe it's not proper to take fire from the outer altar. They did it, everything. Maybe you should take fire from the altar only for incense, which is an obligation. And this is not an obligation. So they did everything on their own. They brought the fire on their own, and they brought the incense on their own. Therefore, they brought it from the outside. The Or HaChiam says it's a strange fire that God did not command them. What was so strange about it? That was the strangest, that God didn't command them to bring it. Something like we learned before in the Balaturim. Maybe if they would have taken fire from the altar, maybe God wouldn't have been so angry with them. Or maybe my God was angry for another reason, another way. Or if they would have taken fire from the altar, it would have been strange fire. Okay, here's something interesting. Here, the Seforno. This is from Rab Avadia of Seforno. He lived about 500 years ago in Italy. Rab Seforno said, their mistake wasn't really such a big one. They thought that always after the last thing that's offered in the Holy Temple every day is the incense is burned, right? Incense is burned. It's not the last thing. They lit the candles, but the incense is burned. So they thought that just like always after the constant offering, that like the Olas Tamid, they would bring up they would bring incense. So also they thought they would bring incense after this offering that Aaron made. Remember, that's how we started the class. It says there came fire and it devoured the offering that Aaron made. So they thought that they would bring also. They thought they should do it now also, because God revealed himself. So therefore they brought fire. Where did they bring it? On the inner altar. There's others that say that they brought it into the Holy of Holies, but they brought it in the altar. It says, there's a clear sentence that says you should not bring on it strange incense. It's in the end of Parshas Tetzaveh. What we learned about making the inner altar. Remember, we learned about that in the book of Exodus. And in the Parshas Tetzaveh, it says, this altar you should bring on it, but don't bring on it strange incense. So they thought that maybe God would permit them in this. So therefore, they thought that maybe it was okay to bring. It wasn't a strange offering, and they made a mistake. That was their sin. God did not permit it. Namely, what does it mean? That they showed a law in front of Moses. Moses was there, and they declared a law in front of Moses. They should have asked Moses if it was all right, but they thought they were equally great. Okay, let's learn the Kli Yakar. Kli Yakar, he really goes into the details here. It says that they offered a strange fire that God did not command them. Okay, what was their sin? There were a lot of different opinions what their sin is. Right? He's going to bring 7 opinions of what this, and it seems that they oppose one another, and he's going to link them all together. It's really wonderful how he does this. This is the Kli Yakar, was Rabbi Shlomo Milunchitz. He lived about 250 years ago. In this sin, there are a lot of different opinions. 200 years ago, and there's a lot of different opinions. And Rebbe, many. Okay, ready? Here are the opinions. Let's count them. One is they were drunk. Because we'll see right after that, Moses is going to say a commandment: don't go into the service drunk. Remember, we learned yesterday. We learned 4 of the commandments that we can learn here. That they have to go in with proper garments. They shouldn't go in with long hair. They have to be married. You have to be married. So let's look and see. One opinion says, why did God get mad at them? Because they were drunk. They went in drinking wine. Another one says that they went in and they didn't wash their hands and feet first. A Kohen has to wash his hands and his feet from this laver before he served. And they didn't. They just rushed in. Reason number 2. Some people say that they didn't have the proper garments. The me'il was a cloak that Kohanim have to wear. To the 3. Some people, that's number 3. Here's number 4. Some people say because they didn't have any sons, children. Here's number 5. They didn't have wives. Here's number 6. Because they showed a law. They declared a law in front of Moses. They should have asked Moses. That's number 6. Here's number 7. Because they were going and saying, when will Moses and Aaron die? And we too will take their place. They wanted to rule over the congregation. That's number 6. Here's number 7. Some people say that this was a continuation of the sin of the golden calf. Remember who actually made the golden calf? Aaron. Aaron told everybody, right, throw your gold into this big melting pot. And they did it, and all of a sudden this golden calf came up. That's number 7. Gomer and they said, Yishalem Shalaim L'Reu, that a person that does a sin, he has to pay double, steal something. All these opinions, even though that they're, of course, these are all great people that say this, but nevertheless, here the simple sentence says it didn't, with simple meaning here, it denies it. What does it say? It says clearly that why did they die? They died because they gave strange fire. It says here clearly that they sacrificed strange fire. So what are all these other reasons? That they were drunk and that they weren't married, they didn't have children, they didn't have garments, they didn't wash their hands. It says clearly in the sentence that all those were not the reason. So it says the Kli Yakar, all of those reasons can be proved from here. From here. All these reasons. So let's see, look and see. Therefore, I want to say that all of these different opinions that I brought, what was their sin? They all are indicated in this commandment of Aaron, sons, that they transgressed this commandment, and that's why they were killed. So therefore, let's see how it is that all of these things are hinted at by what it says here, that they brought strange fire. Okay, ready? Here's one opinion that says that we're just going to go short into each one of these. The one opinion that says that they drank wine, they were drunk. How can we learn that from strange fire? Right, they were drunk. So it says this strange fire was the fire that was burning inside of their hearts. What is the fire? Nevertheless, they wanted to know that they shouldn't go into the house of God if they were drunk. What does it mean they were drunk? Okay, it goes. I'm sorry, this is just really makes it hard to speak. It says because they had the wine was burning inside of them, that this commandment had not been said to them yet. The commandment will be said in a couple of minutes. We'll see. The commandment of not drinking wine. Here, let's look and see here. Here, look. He said, excuse me 1 second. Here. Yain v'sheichar al taste. Don't drink wine or alcoholic beverages, you or your sons, when you go into Lomeg. Okay, but this had not been commanded to them yet. They didn't command it, so what was wrong with it? So he said, because they should have known because the wine made them so enthusiastic. It made them so enthusiastic. So even though they hadn't been commanded yet, they should have known from their own logic that you should not go into the gate of the king when you're drunk. And what's the proof that you shouldn't go in? Because it says that at the end of the book of Shemot, not in the end of the book, in the end of Mishpatim, it says that the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, says that they made a feast and they ate and they drank. It says because they drank, as it says, God wanted to punish them. He wanted to punish them. It says, Al Latzile ben Israel, but God did not punish them. Why? Even though he should have, because they ate and they drank and they got pleasure from looking at the presence of God, which means they became like too familiar. They acted too casually. God didn't want to kill them then because he didn't want to destroy the happiness of the giving of the Torah. This none of you should have learned and understood that back then when God gave the Torah, he didn't want to punish the people who were drunk because he didn't want to wreck it. But now, God couldn't hold back. And therefore, drinking was not a good thing. And the fire that was inside of them, God resisted punishing them for this almost 9 months since they ate and drank back then at Mount Sinai. God held out. And now they should have learned their lesson and not repeated what they did back there. Therefore, it says, and that when did they receive the second tablets? They said second tablets they received on Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur, to indicate them that you shouldn't make a feast and be lightheaded regarding the holy temple. And they didn't. So because of that, that's the strange fire that burned inside us. So there's from this idea of the strange fire, it says that was there, strange fire. This is also the strange fire, which can be caused by drinking, getting drunk. Another one said that they didn't have women, they didn't have wives, they weren't married. It says because they had such, it says a person that does not have a wife as his could have negative licentious thoughts. Fire can be burned in him. So that's what it says, that because they weren't married, so it could be that the fire of family relations could have been that it was burning inside of them. They didn't direct their physical desires properly. Therefore, there was another reason. Another reason is the Lubavitcher Rebbe also explains this, something similar to what he does, but a little bit differently. It says, some say that they didn't have the proper garment. It says because this me'il, this cloak, it brings forgiveness for lashon hara, for destructive speech. And they said bad things about Moshe and Aaron. Remember, they said, when will these two old men die? And then we can, so because they wanted to take over and they said it, so therefore it was Lashon Hora. If they would have worn this cloak, it would have brought forgiveness for them. The one that says they didn't have any sons, why didn't they have any sons? Because this was a punishment for the golden calf. Because through idolatry, it says God will visit the sins of the fathers on the sons and on the sons of the sons. Aaron was the one who made the golden calf. He had sons, but the sons of his sons, namely Nadav and Avihu, they didn't have any children because they didn't. Aaron didn't have any grandchildren, and so that was the sin that was visited because of the sin that he did. Aaron did on the golden calf. It shows that he hadn't been forgiven completely. And the one that says they didn't wash their hands and their feet, this is because they didn't sanctify themselves properly. And therefore they still were connected to the mundane world. And therefore they weren't allowed to go into the Holy of Holies. The Lubavitcher Rebbe also takes a lot of these. He brings 3 or 4 of them. We'll see, maybe we'll learn the Sikha. We just finished the Sikha of the Rebbe today. Maybe we'll learn another one. the Sikha that talks about this. It says the whole reason that we're in the world is to make this world holy. And the Rebbe brings the story with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva. That Rabbi Akiva had 3 pupils, companions, pupils, and they all 4 of them were very holy, incredibly holy people, and they all, says, went into the secrets of the Torah so deeply that they actually united the highest levels of godliness. And it says that 3 of them was a catastrophe. For 3 of them, it was a catastrophe. We're now talking about Nadav and Avihu, the 2 sons of Aaron, and they died when they took strange fire into the holy temple. And the Rebbe says, we just brought it down from the Kli Yakar, that some of the reasons were they weren't married, they didn't have the proper garments, they didn't have the proper garments on, and they were drunk. So we just finished learning what the Kli Yakar says and how he connects all this with the idea of strange fire. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe explains them, and he says that it's something like, there's a similar story with Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbi Akiva said he and 3 of his compatriots, they went into the secrets of the Torah, and they went the highest levels of godliness. Said for 3 of them, it was a catastrophe. Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, and Elisha ben Avua. Shimon ben Azai, Shimon ben Zoma, says one of them looked, and what he saw, he died. The other one went crazy. And Elisha ben Avua they're called Acher. He became an apostate. He decided that there's 2 gods. And the only one that went was his Rebbe Akiva. He went in peace and he came out in peace. And the Rebbe says that's very important, how he came out, because when Rebbe Akiva went in to these secrets, he had in his mind to come out. And the others, they just wanted to come close to God. And that was the sin of Nadav and Avihu. They wanted to get close to God. Their intentions were the best, the holiest. They wanted to get close. But the problem was is they didn't connect themselves with the real purpose of the creation of man, and namely to bring holiness into the physical world. They just wanted to go away, be as holy as possible. And that was their mistake. That's what it means. They didn't get married. In other words, they didn't make vessels in this physical world. They were drunk. They were just inebriated from their desire to be close to God. They didn't have the proper garments. Same thing. They didn't make proper garments in this world. They didn't care about themselves, etc. Okay. Okay, here's an interesting thing. The dots of Canaan. It says they brought this fire. They brought this as a strange fire, and therefore God punished them. So it says there already was. They knew that there was a commandment. It says in the end of Parshas Ki Tetzaveh that you're not supposed to bring Zara. You're not supposed to bring strange fire on the altar. They knew it, and they knew they weren't commanded to do it. But they thought that maybe God permitted it temporarily, because there's sometimes that God makes something forbidden and he permits it temporarily to make God's name great. Like we find the story with Eliyahu and Har Carmel, that he made a bama. Now, you know the story with Eliyahu and Har Carmel. And this was Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet. He was in the first temple. Now, as soon as the first temple was built, it was forbidden to make private altars. You're not allowed to make private altars. As soon as the first temple was built, that's all. There was a thing called a bama. A bama. And a bama is the Jewish people were allowed to make own private sacrifices, right? And when they came into Israel, they could make it. There was a 369-year period when it was in Shiloh when they couldn't make it. But after that, there was 30 whatever years, and it was permissible to make your own offerings. But as soon as the first temple was built, you're not allowed to make offerings outside of the temple. Well, there's a story that Elijah the prophet did make an offering outside of the temple, that all the Jewish people worshiping this god, a sun god or whatever it was, called Baal. And Elijah the prophet said, okay, everyone likes this Baal, this god. Okay, you call all the priests of the Baal and you make a big altar, and I'll make my own private altar, right? I'm alone. Everybody's against me. And let's see, the fire comes down from heaven. On whose altar it'll come down? You make an offering, I'll make an offering. Let's see. And sure enough, the offering came down for Elijah the prophet, right? Aneni Hashem Aneni. And all the people saw it and they bowed down. They said, Hashem Elohim. Amazing story. But it's a sin. What did he do? You can't make offerings outside of the temple. It's forbidden. So he says, well, sometimes God permits it. It's called a Horat Shah, a temporary permission. So Nadav and Avihu thought maybe now was one of these times. True, they knew they shouldn't have brought the incense, but they thought maybe God is allowing us to do it in order to make God's name great. They came to be, even though it was Isser Bums, right? Even though it was forbidden for them, for Elijah the prophet to do what he did. So they thought maybe God will permit us also. Came Nochel Purish, that's what we can say, that Lisrov at Bonel B'Eish Asher Lo Tziviti, that God did not command. That's what it means. It wasn't a commandment for them. Okay. That's the first sentence. So now that explains what the logic was for their sin, why they sinned, why they did such a strange thing. They had the best of intentions. They did not want in any way to do a sin. They only wanted to come close to God. They just didn't have the proper preparations, and they made an improper, decision in their mind on how to do it. Well, what happened is there came a fire in front of God, and it devoured them, and they died before God. What does Rashi say? Here, Rashi brings a few other reasons why. It says Rabbi Eliezer said the reason they died was because that they decided a law in front of Moses. They should have asked Moses, can we go in or not? Rabbi Yishmael said they were drunk. And you should know that afterwards we can see that God commanded them, right? Like a king that had a son, a person in his house, etc. Like it says in Vayikra Rabbah, that you're not allowed to be drunk in front of the king. And that's what Rashi brings the opinions. Okay, here's the Ramban. The reason that they died, it says they died in front of God. By the way, Rashi explains later on that what happened? It says the two streams of fire came down into their nostrils and burned them in from the inside. Rashi will say that later on. Here, we don't have much time, so I would just like to skip. I wanted to do this Ramban here. Okay, here. Here, the Or HaChiam says another reason that they weren't afraid of the fact that they didn't have the proper honor of the altar, and because they came in front of God. And also, it shows that what? And that the reason that they died was because that they so to speak, preceded God. They wanted to run in, like it says in Vayikra, Shemisasam Hayu Lama Shekadam V'Yechazu Et Elokim, that they rushed in. They rushed in to see godliness. And it's something like it says in the end of Mishpatim, precious Mishpatim that we had earlier, that at Mount Sinai, it says, before they received the Torah, as they made a big meal and they ate and they drank, and God wanted to kill them. We talked about that just now. God wanted to kill them, but he didn't want to wreck up the wedding between them and the Jewish people. So Moses says to Aaron, this is what God said. The ones who are close to me, I will be sanctified. And in front of the people, I will be honored. And Aaron was quiet. Let's look at Rashi, very scary Rashi. God, when did God say, V'noah did Israel? God said, make me a tabernacle, and I will meet with the Jewish people, and I will be made holy and sanctified. Don't say, B'kvodi, that I will be sanctified, Ella b'chvudai, and the ones who sanctify me. Omer Moshe Aaron. Moses said to Aaron, Aaron, my friend, my brother, you just lost two of your choice sons in 1 second. You never thought it would happen. You should know, I want to comfort you. You should know that I knew that this tabernacle would be made holy in the people who are close to God. I thought that it would either be me or you. Now I see that Aaron and that Nadav and Avihu are greater than both of us. In other words, Nadav and Avihu, they became like the first sacrifices that were actually made, right? What do you mean the sacrifices? The word for sacrifice means to come close. So it says, B'korovai Kadesh. It says, B'korovai. It's the same word as sacrifice. So Aaron's two sons, God, so to speak, took them as sacrifices. And Aaron was quiet. And Aaron was quiet. He received the reward. What was the reward? That afterwards God spoke to him alone. Like we're going to see in a few sentences. God says that don't drink wine in order to come in. What does it mean, Mekaravai? And the ones that I chose. So God is saying like this, who is it that wants to come close to me so much that he's willing to give his life and he's willing to show how holy the holy temple is, that I will respond to this desire, right? And we see that God did not burn them up. He burned them up from the inside. So it shows that they died this honorable death. I mean, death itself is not a good thing. In Judaism, especially not. But nevertheless, God showed that there's an action and a reaction immediately. And that Aaron's sons received it because they had the best and best of intentions. It's just that their means were wrong. So it says, and therefore, Aaron, your two sons, they honored me. They made me holy. They were the ones that really inaugurated the holy temple. It says, on the face of all the people, I am honored. When God makes when God judges the righteous, everyone becomes in awe. And everything becomes elevated. And God becomes praised. If so, with these people, how much more so when God makes a judgment on the evil people, right? Then everybody knows that one who goes against God, he gets punished. And also it is now, Nor Elokim Miktashecha, that God is holy in his, God is awesome in his holy place. Don't say in his holy place, but Mikadushecha, from those who sanctify themselves for him. So here we see one of the first examples in the Torah of self-sacrifice for the Creator. And the Creator, Moshe said it was a good thing. But in the end, it wasn't what God really desired. God wants to be here. He doesn't want people to leave this world. That's why in the end, it's at the end of this whole entire amazing thing called the creation of the world and serving God, there's going to be what's called the raising of the dead. All of the dead people will raise up, especially the Jews and all the people that went according to the Torah. They'll all raise up into this physical world. Again, because God, this physical world is the most important place. And that's the idea of the holy temple. But a person's attitude is of primary importance. And the attitude has to be one of, I'm willing to give everything for God. But there has to be just a little bit more. And a little bit more is on God's terms. And what does God want? God wants us to have this attitude of being willing to be burned up for God, etc. But it's better to be in this physical world after everything. And that's why those people who died on Kiddush Hashem, all these stories about in the times of the Crusade, the Inquisition, and all these things, how many Jews died, were killed by the church, etc. That's called Kiddush Hashem, right? They were. This is what I heard. Maybe you can contradict me, but this is what I heard. I never heard anything else. The first one not to give Jews a choice to either choose their religion or die was Hitler. Hitler killed Jews. You could say whatever you wanted to, right? You could deny I'm a Jew. You could say I'll be a Nazi, whatever you want to. He would kill him. If he found out that somebody was like 2 generations Jew and you were finished, even 3 generations, some even 4 generations, then you were finished. That was it. But except for that, like in the time of the church and the Crusades and all this stuff, if a Jew would say, hey, I'm changing my religion, right? I will believe the same thing you do, they would leave him alone. Because, oh, this is successful. This is what we really wanted, right? Like they say, the church, the Christians, they worship a suffering Jew, and they want to make as many Jews suffer as possible. So either physically or spiritually. So if a Jew would say, that's it, I believe like you, leave me alone, they would leave him alone. Leave him alone. We see that there was thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Jews that refused to leave Judaism. And they chose death. A crazy thing. Why we could just say, they could have just said, okay, I'll do whatever you want, and then go home. According to some opinions, that's what the Moranos were, and that they didn't want to be burned at the stake in Spain. And so they said, okay, we'll be Catholics or whatever they were. And in the basement, they were like Jews, right? They acted like Jews, right? But there weren't that many that did that. The most of them gave their lives. So we see that from here, that it's a holy thing, even though it's a terrible thing. And it's not a type of a thing that, that Judaism encourages. But on the other hand, when the situation comes and a Jew has a choice to either give his life or change his religion, so any normal thinking person will say, I'll change my religion, what's the question? And then I'll do whatever. And suddenly, a Jew can't do it. Says Shema Yisrael, and he gives his life. Right? And this is something like that. Not of an view. They gave their lives to come close to God. Not advisable. Don't try it at home. And it ended up that it was not a good thing. But Moses said that it was a good thing. They made the holy temple sanctified. This was the first day that the tabernacle was open, and it shows us a general attitude toward God, but it just was missing one thing: to come back into this world and be a Jew that improves the physical world, because that's what God really wants in the end. Have a good day. See you tomorrow, God willing, 8:15 in the morning, Chasidus with Mashiach now. Hopefully, I won't be hoarse then tomorrow also. Thank you for attending. Shalom and bracha.